welcome to Into the Looking Glass. Today, I want to talk about a Bigfoot story from 1888 in Humboldt County, California. A dude named Wyatt. He was in a gold mine in town back in the day, and he saw this Native American gathering up a bunch of raw meat, and the native headed towards the woods with all this raw meat, and he was kind of curious, where he was going with it. So he followed the native. Native eventually noticed he was following him, and he asked the native, like, yo, what you doing with all that raw meat? And the native just kind of waved and told him to follow him quietly, and they eventually walked a ways, and then they found a cave, and within the cave, they found basically an ape beast-like creature, pretty large. Wyatt had seen a lot of bears and creatures in that area, and definitely never seen anything like this. The native woke it up, gave it the plate of big raw meat. The beast thing fucking devoured it, and Wyatt watched in amazement and asked the native, like, what is this thing? And the native explained its origins and said that this moon type object, little small moon is what he called it, was flown by a couple human like people and flew over their lands and waved at them as if, they were friendly, and then shot out creatures like Bigfoot, basically like creatures from the bottom of their ship, and then took off. And there's a lot of other stories like that from other native tribes in America, that Nordic type beings are in these UFOs that they see when these Bigfoots are around, or they'll see like a bright light and a Bigfoot will eventually, appear, and then they'll see a UFO with Nordics in it. So they always tie them together. They're usually connected or correlate together. So I think that's fascinating, just because I always had the theory that maybe Bigfoots are just guardians of like inner cities like Shambhala and the Himalayas. That's where they saw one of the first Yetis, was Himalayan mountains. And they have little myths and legends about Shambhala. And I'm a believer kind of in these inner cities, because there's a lot of stories and myths about them. And what some people aren't distinguishing between these myths and reality is that maybe they're not fully made up, but they're maybe not on this reality. So maybe they're just on a different plane, like on a fourth dimension. So for people like us that are in a material world, our third eye or our pineal gland is kind of calcified and small, we can't see these extraordinary things around us like ghosts and elves and dwarves and all this shit. So some of these places are still hidden to our eyes, but they are there, if that makes sense. You Christians believe in heaven, so like, think of it that way. You guys believe you go to this wonderful paradise afterwards. It's kind of the same thing, but different dimensions and all that shit. So anyways, I always thought it was just a guardian. And it kind of makes sense, because Admiral Byrd, he talked once that when he went into like basically an inner earth area that's opening within the earth, he got kind of drug into it. When he first found that area that he got drug into, it was in a mountain range in like Antarctica or Greenland. I can't remember. I think it's Antarctica though. And he saw a bunch of moss and like grass that he'd never seen before. It seemed unworldly to him, especially in the Arctic. There shouldn't have been grass there. And then he saw elephants, but they weren't just elephants, they were mammoths. And that was pretty odd too. But then when he got sucked down into this inner kind of city, these Nordic type beings came up to his plane, and they talked to him telepathically, and they seemed to already know his name, which was kind of weird. And they're very high vibrational. They had crystal-like natural energy and crystal buildings and all this stuff, which again, that's in a lot of pre-flood, ancient, pre-ice age tales of civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff. They use that kind of technology. And High Brazil, that's another ancient lost island that had higher technology that dealt with crystals and stuff. Anyways, what if though, these Nordics, they do have these Bigfoots. Maybe they're like pets and they just drop them off, like a parent would a child at a playground. And they, just let them roam free, or their security measures, like I said, the Nordics are these blonde-haired beings from inner Earth. They land them in their security measures, basically. So A lot of different theories. Some people think Bigfoot is even an exiled alien that, they get dropped off here because they're not allowed on the planet that they're from. So they drop them off here where we don't know what the fuck they are. And so there's that theory. There's a theory that I think is interesting just because it correlates a little bit with the theory that I've made up recently, where some people think Bigfoot is an alien species, but it crashed here, 400,000 years ago and then was just stranded on Earth, and they've just kind of made this their home over the last 400,000 years. I thought 400,000 years as well, but I thought that time because in Sumerian texts, that's when Enki first, around that time, maybe 300,000 years ago for humans, he created us. But then I believe he created Bigfoot first. That was the first creation of Enkidu. And, they didn't like that creation specifically. They didn't make a good slave race that they were looking for. They were too maybe ape or something, so they kind of threw them to the side. But throwing them to the side, they still evolved in over 400,000 years or 300,000 years. They've become something we don't understand because we consciously are still on a pretty low level. So I don't think we can understand why can't we see Bigfoot. We can't understand or comprehend that maybe they do have this type of camouflage, like certain lizards have where they can change their skin color, but they go completely invisible. And so people can't comprehend that. It's not that they go maybe invisible, maybe they go into another reality. Again, the fourth dimension. Maybe they're just a step away from that. Maybe they're on both planes and they feel threatened, so they go back into that. Same with Nessie. There's one story about the Nesslock monster that is super interesting, where it came up on shore and came up to almost someone's porch, like a small Nessie, and then it fucking spun and went into a vortex and just disappeared. And so again, even though I think Nesslock monster is just a remnant of a dinosaur, if it's a being like Bigfoot, maybe it has that fourth dimensional quality as well. Maybe they're beings from the pre-Ice Age time when we had elves and dwarves and all this shit that we can't see anymore. They're just on that brink, of realities. So, yeah, just mull all that over. Like I said, there's a lot of origins and possibilities what Bigfoot could be. So, thanks for watching.